Hong Kong demonstrations turning violent once again. Hong Kong police used rubber bullets and tear gas as they stormed into a university held by protesters. Fiery explosions erupted. Anti-government protesters had barricaded themselves in the campus for days. For more on the Hong Kong unrest and its impact on the trade talks and the markets, let's welcome Senator Rick Scott of Florida. He sits on the Commerce, Budget, Homeland Security, and Armed Services committees. And Senator, in your recent appearances, you are truly one of the biggest hawks on China and China trade. We seem to be somewhere along the way to a skinny phase one deal. Is that about what you expected? And I don't know what you'd essentially like to do, just cut off all relations with China at this point until they come into the modern world. But that's not going to happen. Would you be in favor of some type of skinny deal, phase one, that alleviates the fear of more tariffs, or do we go full bore?
First off, it's disgusting what they're doing in Hong Kong. They're taking away basic rights, and they're not using rubber bullets. Just remember, they're using rubber discs. They're shooting at these protesters. They're shooting tear gas canisters at the protesters. So this is just the part of the Communist Party, Communist China, cracking down on anybody that has any rights. With regard to a trade deal, how many months are we going to keep talking about this? They're not going to do what we need them to do. They're not opening up their markets. They're not going to stop stealing our technology. They're not going to stop putting people in prison for their religion. So would I like a deal? Sure. All of us would like a deal with China. But do we believe they're going to change? They'll buy our agricultural products, which I'm glad they are, but only because under their system, they can't produce enough to feed their own citizens. That's the only reason they're doing it. They're not going to do anything that's good for us, and they're never going to open up their markets.
So, Senator, we deal with regimes around the world that sort of, for lack of a better term, we hold our nose as we deal with them. You're saying go ahead and go forward with this with China, but with eyes wide open, but go ahead and do it, but just know that in the back in the future, we've got to try to accomplish some other things in terms of human rights and everything else?
Well, first off, we don't go around the world and do business with countries like China. China is a country that we always believe that if we did more trade with them, they would actually open up their markets. They would actually provide more freedoms, and they've done just the opposite.
It's a big IPO coming
President
up.
Xi is cracking down on everybody.
That we're doing the Saudi IPO that we love, and they do, there are other, we're trying to negotiate with North Korea. We have.
Senator.
Well, I think it's right to have conversations with people, but let's look at this. I mean, North Korea, have they changed? I mean, they may change their rhetoric a little bit, but they haven't changed. Communist China's not changing.
The larger question is, are you effectively arguing for a genuine decoupling? Because if you're talking about a genuine decoupling, then you're also talking about a decoupling
I don't think
for
it was
the
any
rest
question.
of the world. Because you're asking countries, to take sides. There are lots of big issues that we, as a global citizen, if you will, have to contend with over time. And I imagine whether it's nuclear proliferation, whether it's climate, I mean, there's so many big issues that I imagine you would want countries to be talking to each other about, whether it's the internet and how people communicate with each other. And if we do have a genuine decoupling, I imagine all of that's off the table.
Well, first off, I mean, I believe we've got to live in reality. Communist China, it wants to control the entire world, including Americans. All right, look at all their actions. They promised Obama they wouldn't militarize the South China Sea. They did. All right, they don't open up their markets. I mean, look at all the things they're doing. We have to live in reality for a second. They're not our partner. Just like Russia's not our partner. They're never going to be our partner under the existing leadership teams at these countries. So we have to act in the best interest of American citizens. We cannot continue to build the Chinese economy and have them steal American jobs, sell fentanyl in this country, and kill American citizens. Let's live in reality. They're only going to buy our products if they have to do it because under their system it doesn't work.
Senator Scott, this is Walter Isaacson. China restricts, of course, our internet companies, including what Google and Facebook and others can do. And yet the biggest growing app in America is TikTok. and, ByteDance, their company, owns it. Should we put similar restrictions because they're harvesting data and including invading privacy? I mean, that's part of what these companies do. Should we be putting restrictions on the way that their technology can work and asking people in the U.S. not to use it?
Well, first off, I think all of us have to understand if we give data to China, they can use it against us. So I have a bill that says we're not going to buy any more Chinese drones. I think the president's doing the right thing by saying we've got to be careful about 5G with Huawei. So we've got to look at it's a different issue. We've got to look at this from a federal government standpoint and state government standpoints. But then as a citizen, do you want your data to be owned by the Chinese government? That's what's happening. There's no difference between the Chinese government and the Communist Party. There's no freedoms there. Companies there have to work with their government. So as an individual, I think you ought to be very careful about what data you want China to have. As a country, we have to be absolutely clear. We are not going to do business with China and let them have our information. And that's what you do with drones. That's what you do with Huawei. So we've got to be very, very, very cautious.
Senator, you mentioned that you are in favor of the administration and President Trump's caution when it comes to Huawei. Today, those Huawei licenses come up for renewal once again. Should they be re-signed and allow American companies to go ahead and continue to use that technology?
Absolutely not. If Huawei is a branch of the Communist Party of Communist China. And so we have got to understand that we need to go build out our technology without the support of China, which will control our information. No one likes what China's doing, but we're not going to help them by pacifying them. We're not going to get where we want to do by pacifying them. We've got to act in our own best interest. And our own best interest is not doing business with China.
On Huawei in particular, and I don't want to be a defender here of Huawei, but we've now heard from a couple of big leaders around Huawei. Do you have any evidence thus far directly that you believe that the government has used Huawei in improper ways against the West?
Yeah, they used it. They did it in, I'll get you the information, but they did it in Africa. And just remember, the individual that's built Huawei is part of the Communist China, part of the Communist Party. And so they are obligated now by law in China. Every company is obligated to provide whatever information the Chinese government wants. So absolutely, they're going to use it. And why would you put yourself in the position if they haven't done it yet? But they've clearly done it in Africa already.
These protests, I don't know. We got to go, Senator, but it seems like the protesters are going to keep pushing this. And now, arrows, if
I hope so.
Really? But arrows, if you go to arrows, then they're not going to use rubber bullets. They're almost daring the police to.
Yeah, but I agree. They shouldn't be doing it unpeacefully. But let's remember, they were outlawed. Peaceful protests were outlawed. This is caused by President Xi saying you cannot have just a peaceful protest. So he's caused this. I don't want any protest not to be peaceful. Who doesn't?
Okay. All right, Senator, thanks. We know you got to run. We appreciate it. Thank you.